bill be now read a second time. I call the member for Baulkham Hills.
Madam Acting Speaker, this bill should be responded to with 2 words from the opposition: too late. This is too late. Too late because you're in opposition. Too late because the people of New South Wales made a judgment call on you in March 2011 and deny you the right to introduce legislation to this chamber. Too late because Eddie Obeid has sullied the name of every single one of you sitting on the government benches. Too late because you have had absolutely no right to stand up here and lecture to this side of the House and lecture to the people of New South Wales what is right and what is wrong when it comes to public policy. Too late because you completely destroyed energy in this state over 16 years by ripping profits out of the electricity generators and not putting a cent back into them, not ensuring that the cost of electricity.
Order.
Don't go pointing on our side of the chamber, mate. We're here to fix up your problems. We're here to fix up your problems. Too late because the generation of electricity and energy in this state is so high that families in my electorate have to miss meals because they can't afford to heat their houses. Too late because pensioners are looking for food coupons in the middle of winter so that they don't... No, you just sit here and you cop it because you created this problem, member for Miranda. You created this problem and you brought in this legislation. I see that your leader hasn't got the guts to come here into the chamber and speak on it. I see that your leader, who was denied the opportunity to be leader of the opposition until Eddie Obeid stood up there and delivered in the numbers. I see that your leader, who was the one who introduced this legislation, as an opportunity and means to clean his hands of all the stench that Eddie Obeid has left him through. It is too late. Madam Acting Speaker, this bill is much like the North Sydney
Speaker,
Bears.
to you.
Madam Speaker, this legislation is much like the North Sydney Bears. Remember them? They used to get up at the beginning of the season and buster about and tell everybody how it was going to be their season, and they'd stand up and they'd tell us how wonderful the season was going to be for them. And then by about game 2, by about round 2, we'd see exactly...
Point of order. Member will resume his seat while I hear the point of order.
This has nothing to do with the North Sydney Bears.
What's your point of order, though? What is your point of order?
129.
I think debate on bills is fairly wide-ranging, so...
Madam Speaker,
and always has
the
been.
point that I'm making, Madam Speaker, is that the North Sydney Bears were failures and they were removed from the first grade. These guys are failures, and at the next election they'll be removed from the first grade. I don't know who's going to replace them. I'm thinking about this legislation, and some of the debates we've had in the last couple of days might mean that any of you that represent working class Conservative people will probably be voting Liberal at the next election. But listen, we've got 12 months to work that out. I can't wait to have this legislation, this bill, when it's removed from this chamber. I can't wait to have this bill, when it is being rejected by this chamber, sent out with the how to vote cards in all of your seats, because we're going to be saying to everybody, listen, this is what the Labor Party's about. The Labor Party's about introducing legislation that's going to increase the cost of heating your home. The Labor Party's about introducing legislation that's going to put a tighter squeeze on your family budget. The Labor Party's going to introduce legislation in an attempt to make you forget about Eddie Obeid. But no way. No way in the world, mate. You guys sat with Eddie Obeid. You guys took the money. You guys accepted his judgment. You guys are going to have to cop it. So you just sit there and cop it. You want to play with the big boys, you want to dish a fight up, well, mate, you're going to have to sit there and cop it. Mr Acting Speaker, this bill is just too simplistic. It is way too simplistic. I'm actually surprised it has been brought before the Parliament, because I can't understand why anybody from the Labor Party would want to go anywhere near this type of legislation. I don't know why they want to go anywhere near this type of debate. I don't understand for the life of me. I've been hanging around politics and politicians for 25 years. My grandfather was a shop steward in the electrical union. Mate, I thought I understood the Labor Party. I really did. I thought they stood up for honesty and decency and working people. But this legislation and the 16 years of corruption and inept government that goes along with it, This legislation is proof positive that Labor have learned absolutely nothing. See, on our side, we've got blokes like the member for Wallandilly. Yeah. We've got blokes like the member for Wallandilly who have a real understanding of energy policy. He understands about how and why we need to keep water in this state clean. He understands about the importance of maintaining natural resources as a pristine way of life, to continue our pristine way of life here in New South Wales. He's the sort of bloke I'll be taking advice from, not the leader of the opposition, not the bloke that's got the picture of Eddie O'Beid stapled to every how to vote card that's going to be dished out next March. Mr Acting Speaker, this bill ignores the enormous amount of work that this government and this minister, or the minister that is opposing it, has done to develop the most stringent and effective regulation in Australia for coal seam gas activities. We now have a very strong set of safeguards for this industry. Nothing in this legislation highlights the fact that that mob over there was willingly dishing out coal seam gas licences to whoever went into Eddie O'Beid's office. Nobody's talking about that on this legislation. I noticed that the Speaker from the opposition that spoke on it didn't say a word about Eddie O'Beid, didn't say a word about the donations that the Labor Party received in return for coal seam gas, but they have the audacity to stand up and try to lecture us about the morality of our legislation, about our policy. They don't have morality. They forfeited the right to talk about morality in this House. That is why there's only 20 of them. The high standards that we have, Mr Acting Speaker, the high standards are safeguards and send a clear message that a knee-jerk blanket permanent prohibition is not the way to go for coal seam gas in the Sydney water catchment area. There needs to be evidence-based approach. Evidence-based approach. And the definition of evidence in the Evidence Act does not mention Eddie O'Beid. It doesn't mention Eddie O'Beid. It means that you've got to have stuff that you can prove is true, that can be tested. That's what evidence needs. This legislation does not address the evidence-based approach. That is why. Mr. Can I have an extension, please, Mr.
I'm not sure if you keep calling me Madam Speaker, no, but the member is seeking an extension. All that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Member for Baulkham Hills. It's all right. It's all good.
Mr. Acting Speaker, this hold will remain in place. The hold on the coal seam gas activities that the government has announced will remain in place until the completion of a study by the New South Wales Chief Engineer and scientists commissioned by this government, because of course they didn't understand the need to have scientists involved when they were handing out Eddie O'Beid's licences. This study is in addition to the Chief Scientist's ongoing statewide coal seam gas review. The whole...
Order. The member for Miranda, you've had a go.
I'm sorry, I have to respond to that.
The member will be heard in silence.
Mr Acting Speaker, if the member for Miranda wants to stand up in this place and complain to us about closing down government resources and offices, he needs to go and remind himself and refresh his memory what happened in the 12 years that he was in this chamber as a member of the government. There was more closures under their administration that we could even dream of, Mr Acting Speaker. So for him to stand up here and try to complain to this House about the way the Cronulla Fisheries was closed is proof positive that they have very, very short memories. Proof positive that they have very, very short memories. Mr Acting Speaker, the hold that we have on statewide coal seam gas shows why our government, the O'Farrell government, continues to listen to the community and builds on the strong regulatory framework which we have put in place, because that's what the community demands, that's what they expect. This important piece of public policy is too vital for this state for the opposition to play silly games and trying to introduce half-baked demands on restrictions. Mr Acting Speaker, the strong regulatory framework that we've got for coal seam gas applies throughout New South Wales, including the special areas in the Sydney water catchment area. That is probably something that the Leader of the Opposition missed when he was drafting this legislation. The sound regulatory framework we now have in place is a key means of ensuring that environmental protection is the most important consideration in approving coal seam gas. Environmental protection, Mr Acting Speaker, that is the most important phrase in this legislation. Again, no reference to Eddie Obeid. Under the opposition, when Eddie Obeid said we were going to get a coal seam gas mine, we got it. Under this administration, when the Environmental Protection Authority and independent advocates tell us we can have a coal seam gas mine, that's when we get it. Difference. Obeid, independent advice. Obeid, independent advice. The framework that we have is second to none, and we offer no apology, Mr Acting Speaker. We offer no apology for the fact that Eddie Obeid has no place in our approval process. One of its particular strengths, of course, Mr Acting Speaker, is enabling independent decision makers to take a risk-based approach to approving coal seam gas projects. This approach is evidence that the work of the Independent Planning Assessment Commission and the Office of Coal Seam Gas, which provide close scrutiny of coal seam gas proposals. The role of these entities enables the government to prevent any coal seam gas exploration or activity in environmentally sensitive areas or inappropriate areas, decided on by a case-by-case basis. Mr Acting Speaker, again, here we see the federal government introducing independent and decision makers that are at an arm's length, not on level 10, where the Labor Party opposition, the Labor Party upper house members sit. This is independent and arm's length assessments. Case-by-case approach follows flexibility and the merits, allows for flexibility and the merits of each application to be considered before a decision was made. Mr Acting Speaker, the Planning Assessment Commission and the Office of Coal Seam Gas do not act in isolation. They have to talk together. The whole notion of this legislation, the whole notion to the way that this government is introducing management of coal seam gas mining is based on the fact that there is flexibility, independence, openness, transparency, and the fact that there is a planning assessment commission which will not work in isolation. They will take advice so that those who are investing in coal seam gas in this state, those that are dedicated to reducing the price for those pensioners that under the Labor Party have had to stock up on blankets and deny themselves food, those people know that the way that the supply of coal seam gas will be advocated by with a fair and equitable approach. Mr Acting Speaker, additional safeguards are now in place to provide for independent sound controls of coal seam gas activities. The Sydney Catchment Area Authority plays a key role in the decision-making process for coal seam gas activities in special areas. The authority bases... No, we're not against it, Mr Acting Speaker. Again, the member for Miranda stands up. The member for the Rural Fire Service, because the only reason he's here is because his mates in the Fire Brigade Union stood up on polling day.
Point of order. Sit down.
Take a seat, please.
Maybe they might come to your house and burn down. What a
point of
disgrace.
order. Member for
Well,
Miranda.
he's straying well and truly from and I said the Sydney Catchment Authority.
Okay, thank you. I'll remind the member for Baulkham Hills not to stray from the bill and return to the bill as close as possible.
Truth hurts and he's in a lot of pain. Mr Acting Speaker, information provided by project proponents for the Catchment Authorities' consideration must be detailed, scientifically robust and holistic, and it must address cumulative impacts. That has been the approach from this government from the start. Critically, the Department of Planning and Infrastructure, the Planning Assessment Commission and the Office of Coal Seam Gas have regard to the advice provided by the authority as part of their decision-making process. Mr Acting Speaker, there is another requirement for coal seam gas title holders to protect the environment. This is through having a hold on environmental protection licence issued by the Independent Environmental Protection Authority. The licences have legally enforceable conditions that address the prevention of pollution and safeguard the environment. They cover air, water and noise. Air, water and noise. These are the safeguards that we have. Mr Acting Speaker, honourable members will also be aware that the government has made the Environmental Impact Authority, the EPA, as well as as we all know it, almost a year ago, the lead regulator of environmental and health matters for coal seam gas. Mr Acting Speaker, so for the Labor Party to stand up here and tell us that the EPA is not up to the job is quite laughable, because, Mr Acting Speaker, if any of them have actually had a job in the private sector, which none of them have, but if any of them had a job in the private sector, they would know that the EPA is a tough cop on the beat. They know how to do the work, they know how to regulate and protect the environment. I have, as somebody with kids who are going to inherit the environment that I live in, they know that I have the utmost confidence. By having the EPA in these roles, the government is making very sure the coal seam gas industry performs at the highest standards, and
the member's time is